the industry has made it incredibly complicated for us to understand what this space is about. Just in its name, programmatic is a relatively misleading title.
I think from the challenging perspective, it's more about the industry as a whole having to kind of clean itself up in terms of viewability and ad fraud and all the kind of issues that we're having in terms of just getting a lot more transparency and a lot more data and understanding, because then that allows us as advertisers to go and get bigger budgets and get internal buy-in.
You know, if 50% of all the online ads that an advertiser buys people can't see or have an opportunity to see, 60% is going to some guy click on a banner in the Philippines, so there's a lot of click ad fraud. Some people are not human. That needs to be cleaned up.
Honesty is quite closely aligned to that trust and that mistrust that advertisers seem to have got, and I think it's all fallen over in the education process. So I mentioned yesterday about how I went to a conference a couple of months ago, and one of the agencies actually said, I've got this campaign, it's got a 50% viewability. I can't tell my advertiser that it's got a 50% viewability because they're going to stop running activity with me. And then from my perspective, I think that if initially the client was educated properly about the industry-wide issues around viewability, that when they heard those kind of results, they wouldn't necessarily be as shocked. So I think that's one of the problems, I think, coming from agencies, is they're not necessarily educating their clients about the whole industry. They're kind of focusing on the pros of using their products.
Every day there is a problem that pops up as a headline on the marketing press. And of course, we advertisers, almost like investors, we don't like uncertainty. And I think that is the key challenge at the moment with programmatic.
And I think this is what's really missing from the industry, is a key understanding that marketeers are interested in one thing: selling more product. And it's how that's done in the most efficient way is what they're really after. And I think unless something gets cleaned up fairly quickly, some of the people will start to walk away and have serious questions about it.
You know, by definition, it's now become the cheap way to buy what other people don't want. And that's not true.
I agree that today most marketers don't know enough about digital and about programmatic specifically. And this is true also for the other agencies that work with the brands and marketers, the creative agencies, the PR agencies, BTL agencies, etc. They also don't understand very well this new environment and this new context.
What is not clear, and what clients really suffer from, is when you come back and say, you know, they're used to paying 2 and 3% for offline media, when suddenly you find tech stack costs are heading to 60, 70% in some cases, they just go, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
I think there is a lot more that the industry needs to do over the next 6 months to basically get their house in order. Because from an advertiser standpoint, I spend money on media to make money. I don't spend money on media to throw it away so my consumers can't see it.
I think the industry is starting to finally address the issues around transparency, etc. I think it's been quite a long time coming. I think it's taken a lot of advertisers to keep harping on about the same issues, and making it a closed environment has actually held the industry back, I think. I think they're finally starting to realise that if you make it more transparent and share that information with advertisers, then it just opens up the entire industry. The more you try and have a closed box, the more people wonder what you're trying to hide.
We've still got to keep that education piece going, and it's really important for us to keep informing people and more senior stakeholders about the incremental value that programmatic activity can add.
It's up to us as you know, the marketing departments of advertisers working with agencies to sell in the fact that this channel has a value, that it's not necessarily the cheapest channel, and that there's an opportunity to buy what we need at a price that's accountable.
I think it's up to us advertisers, really those in charge of the businesses, in charge of the brands, it's up to us to understand what is really our objective and how do we articulate that objective in a way that we can leverage the best technology that is available to deliver that.
Okay, I think the biggest opportunity for programmatic for B&Q is obviously the targeting capabilities and the ability to be able to optimise in real time towards certain KPIs, which delivers really good results.
Getting a better handling on the data that we are generating about our consumers, using that data to basically buy against more effectively in terms of from a targeting standpoint, but also then be able to retarget as well.
I think a lot of brands are still not sure about how valuable their own first-party data is.
So programmatic and TV is, I think, a natural extension of where programmatic is going, and it certainly makes sense from a targeting perspective from TV. I think the challenge is going to be that those two teams sit completely separately. So TV buying and digital buying don't tend to sit together at all. We've started working with some different partners and making them come together and having that conversation about, well, this is our objective, how do we use these different channels and different media buys to get what we want to deliver as a client. So it's a tricky conversation. It's one that probably doesn't sit naturally between different agencies, but we're having quite some success with it at the moment, and I think that's the way the industry needs to go.
Over the next few years, we would want to buy everything programmatic, which includes TV. I think that TV has existed on its own for long enough.
I think the opportunity and the challenge is all about cross-device. So it's about understanding if you talk to somebody on a mobile, what's that impact if they then go and purchase something on a desktop? And it's being able to tie all those things together. So obviously cookies is a big issue in terms of you can't track most of that on mobile. And a lot of the companies are now starting to open up. So Facebook Atlas, for an example, in terms of having the kind of unique ID, I think that's going to be a really big unlock.
The normal rules of doing business, they want to increase transparency, they want to increase their ability to show to advertisers that they are delivering the business outcomes at the fair cost, at the fair price, with the right profit margins that advertisers are keen to pay.
That I think it's important that not everyone thinks that a one-size-fits-all model is going to work. So I think it's important to understand what your objectives are, and potentially you could use a data management platform in-house, but then get your agency to actually run those campaigns for you. I think another piece of advice I'd give to other advertisers is terms of over-promising. So I would say you need to manage your expectations internally and not over-promise what you think programmatic will deliver. Because I think sometimes that's the issues that you have with agencies, is that agencies sometimes over-promise what they're going to be able to give you as an advertiser in terms of results. So I think it's really important to manage those performance numbers when you're thinking about looking to test programmatic.